that the two hemispheres cannot communicate. We know that in specialized testing, we can see that the two hemispheres have different functions. And so we know that the left hemisphere involves language, and like the quiz question says, if something's in my right hand, or if it's only seen in my left visual field, so that it only goes to my right hemisphere, I couldn't tell you what it is. Those subjects and those conditions, time and time again. What do you see? That's over here. They'll say nothing, or I don't know. And then they ask them, well, I want you to pick out what it is that you saw with your left hand, which is controlled by the same hemisphere. And the individual say, I didn't see anything, yet they will pick the correct answer every single time. So we know they recognize it. We say they can't put language to it. But what's really interesting to me when I see that research is they'll make up an excuse. It's like, okay, they see a fork, and they're like, I didn't see anything. There wasn't anything there. It's like point to or pick out the item, and they'll grab the fork. And you say, why did you grab the fork? And they'll be like, I was hungry. They'll like make up some rationale. And think, why? Why would they just not say, I just randomly chose it? They come up with an excuse to explain a behavior that they can't explain. Kind of shows you kind of consciousness. That sometimes we operate where we really don't know what is going on. We don't know consciously, we're not fully aware of the behaviors that we engage in. And this idea of consciousness, conscious experience, is something that has been important from psychology from the very beginning. So since we have our test shortly in a week, we'll start out with a little review. So what year, who, and where do we say psychology got its start without looking at your notes? Anybody remember the year? Somebody said it. 1879. In 1879, who? Wilhelm Wundt established the first laboratory that was using human subjects to study psychological principles. Remember where? Germany. Leipzig, Germany. Okay, so at that time, if you recall, or even if you don't, this is the beginning of formal psychology, and what they were interested in was studying consciousness. They wanted to study the conscious experience. How do we experience the things around us? They used techniques like introspection, where the individual is trained to identify some object, to look inward. Introspection, to think about what am I experiencing and trying to break down that experience into its smallest pieces. Okay? That was a start. Now we know historically that the technique wasn't good, even though they were trying to use experimentation, it wasn't good. But it was absolutely an attempt to study conscious processes, internal thoughts. Others branched out and said maybe we don't need to study the structure, basic elements of consciousness. Maybe we should think about the function. Like James studied the function of consciousness, but it was still conscious experience. Then we know, because they didn't have the tools, because looking inside your head is very difficult to know what consciousness is, for many, many years, the behaviorism took over. And the ideas of what's going on in internal mental processes was totally just not even focused on until the cognitive revolution. It came back, we had better techniques, we can look at brain scans now that we talked about, we can see inner workings that are going on. They came up with other ways to measure inner experiences that they hadn't thought of before. And so it started to bloom again. So today, if you look at that field, what are the different areas? What are avenues that the field covers? And many of these avenues are things that we're going to be discussing. But so the first question that we'll address is, what is it when we're talking about consciousness? And although there are slight variations in definitions, we've got a good idea of what we mean. Another avenue that we'll be discussing in depth has to do with dreams and sleep. So all of us sleep. Why? What's the purpose of it? What's going on when we're sleeping? We'll look into some altered states of consciousness. So like individuals that meditate or hypnosis in particular. Some argue that you go into a different state. The textbook has a whole section on drugs and different psychoactive drugs and how they influence our consciousness. We're probably not going to have enough time to get into discussing the drugs, but the textbook addresses it. And so, before we actually get started in some of this, I got another multiple choice quiz for you. Or not multiple choice, true-false quiz for you. So, again, quickly, this will introduce some of the topics. Go through, answer them as quickly as you can. There's 2 slides, so I'll give you a couple minutes on this one. We'll go to the next one, and then we'll discuss them. I'm not going to collect this, so just write it on the edge of the paper, whatever. Move on. All right, next up. You got your answers? All right, let's look over them. Number 1, older people require more sleep than younger people. True or false? False. There is variation. For one, you have to realize there's individual variation in how much sleep you really need. When individuals talk about you're supposed to get 8 hours of sleep, that is a huge, just like a generalization. Individuals vary exactly how much, but we do see a steady pattern. So as you age, individuals do not need as much sleep. When you're young, you need a tremendous amount. As you get older, it decreases somewhat. We all dream several times a night. That is true. Now, some of you may not remember your dreams, and maybe you're having difficulty like trying to record a dream. But you go through a period multiple times every night that we associate with dreams, called REM sleep, that we'll be discussing in more detail later. The most common dreams of young adults are those with sexual imagery. It's actually false. Although there absolutely is some, most dreams are not sexually charged. 4, the majority of the characters in men's dreams are female. That's actually false. This is a finding that's been, it was discovered a while ago. It's been replicated in many different studies. The rationale, there's different theories to explain it. But in general, if you think about how they would do this research, have a group of subjects, males and females, every night for, say, 2 weeks, you're going to record your dreams. So you wake up in the morning, you're going to write down all the characters that you had in your dreams. And I look at totals. What percentage of the characters in your dreams are male? What percentage are female? Now, look at the difference between men and women. For women, about 50-50. About half of the dreams, the characters are men, half the characters are women. For men, it's like 75% of the characters are men, not women. Why is that? That men dream about men more. Now, we'll talk later about one theory. Why does that happen? We'll talk about one theory, psychoanalytic theory. Freud, who put a lot of precedence into dreams, would argue that that finding underlies the fact that men from an early age see their father as a rival. And that rivalry then becomes symbolic as they see all men as rivals in some way, and so those come out. So it makes sense according to that theory. But there's other interpretations. Most psychologists believe that dreams provide a key to understanding our inner conflicts. So that one's actually false. Now, and the reason is, and this is like true false question, it says most. There are absolutely psychologists that come from the psychodynamic tradition that think that absolutely dreams are a way to uncover unconscious conflict. There are many other psychologists that argue for different rationale for dreams. So we'll be talking about three major theories that try to explain why we dream. People prone to delinquency and violence have fewer vivid fantasies. So that one is actually true. Now again, you're looking at correlational design. So you see how much delinquency, you look at fantasies, and you find this relationship. Some have hypothesized that the reason that the individuals act in delinquent ways is because they're not having a chance to actually act them out in their dreams, so they have to act them out in real life. Under hypnosis, people can be induced to perform feats they would otherwise find impossible. True. False. We'll talk about hypnosis next class. Hypnosis to me is just a fascinating phenomenon. There's different explanations for it, but what I can tell you is what individuals cannot do is incredible things that they couldn't do in a awake state. One of the classic tricks, I guess you call it, in a stage hypnotist act is they'll have hypnotized subjects, like they'll put two chairs a distance apart. They'll tell one of the individuals lay across the chairs and tell them, when you hear snap my fingers, you are aboard. Snap. And then they'll have people stand on them as they're across those chairs. And it looks like, oh my God, they think they're aboard, they're strong. It turns out it's just physics. Anybody can get on there and do it. So nothing's extremely special. With the next one, under hypnosis, people can be induced to perform acts they would otherwise find immoral. That is also false. Now, what we will see in hypnosis, individuals who are hypnotized have lower inhibition. But the whole thing that you could hypnotize somebody and like turn them into an assassin. There's all kinds of movies where, they can turn them into something to do things that they would never do in an unhypnotized state. You do not find that. Now, what that myth, probably how it came about, is there was an early study where they had hypnotized individuals, and the experimenter told the hypnotized individual there was a beaker of bubbling fluid. He said, this is sulfuric acid, and I want you to take this sulfuric acid and throw it in the face of another participant. And they did. Okay? Well, and so those theorists that did that study were like, here's evidence that absolutely you can make them do immoral acts. Others were critical of that and said there's other factors here. For one, let's see, you don't have a control condition. Let's do a control condition. Let's have a group that's hypnotized. Let's have a group that's not hypnotized, but just tell them, act like you're hypnotized. They all were confronted with the same thing. Here's a beaker of sulfuric acid, throw it in somebody else's face, and the non-hypnotized subjects did it as well. And so it's like, oh my God, what's this mean? Well, you can kind of figure the rationale there would be there's no experimenter that would tell their subject to purposely harm another one. That's against ethical rules. So they probably knew it wasn't sulfuric acid. They were willing to do it. They would not do something, killing somebody else, harming something else, totally violating their moral constructs under hypnosis. Not going to happen. In large amounts, alcohol is a depressant. In small amounts, it's a stimulant. False. Alcohol, whether it's a stimulant, any whether it's a stimulant or depressant, then the last one, those given morphine to control pain often become addicted to the drug. You don't want me playing more. So that is false. And what makes that false is often. Can it happen? Absolutely. Morphine is a highly addictive drug. Oxycodone, a morphine derivative, highly addictive drugs. We've got a tremendous amount of drug addiction, especially here in Kentucky. But most people who are given painkillers like morphine do not become addicted. It happens after prolonged use. And so the material that covers drugs, at the end of the chapter, goes into depth about those concepts. So there you got an introduction to some of the concepts that we're going to be talking about. We're going to begin the conversation with consciousness, which is what this chapter is stating, states of consciousness. And so, what is consciousness? If you think, man, I am conscious right now, or you're describing this, what are you really referring to? And so, when psychologists talk about consciousness, in essence, consciousness has to do with awareness. Awareness of sensations, inner feelings. Awareness of your thoughts, your environment. Awareness of yourself. So consciousness can easily be seen as awareness of both internal and external factors. Now, as opposed to just trying to think about this term as a definition, which I'm trying to get you away from just thinking in terms of definitions, instead of thinking, all right, let's just define consciousness, it makes more sense to talk about how consciousness works, what the processes of consciousness are. So, if you look at how does consciousness help us function, there are a few avenues that we're going to discuss, and we're going to do a couple demonstrations. So the first realm that consciousness allows us to do, or works, is in terms of restricting the information that comes in. So I say, by definition, consciousness is our awareness. So, like if you think about right now, as you're sitting here, what are you aware of? You're aware of, you're listening to the lecture, you're looking at the slides, you probably are aware of feelings, maybe not your clothes that are on, but if something's bumping into you, whatever, you got perceptual experiences that are going on, everything that you're thinking about now, that is consciousness. But, what you have to realize is, around you, things that you're not focused on, there is a tremendous amount of stimulation. We're bombarded constantly with way more stimulation and information than we can digest. We just don't have the cognitive, the brain power to deal with everything that's going on. So what consciousness allows us to do is narrow our focus. Focus on the things that are relevant to me, that are important to me. We usually refer to that restriction of attention as selective attention. We're only focusing on aspects of our awareness, or aspects of our surroundings that are important to us. Whether keeping us safe, what we're interested in, what our topics are. So if you think, when you're sitting here, hopefully, if you're trying to learn this class, then you're focusing on, purposely, what I'm saying. You're focusing on this. You're not focused on the people that are around you, the other noises in the room. There's probably, if everybody was really quiet, there's probably, like, you can hear the hum of either the lights or the thing. There's all kinds of stimulus that's going on, but you're not aware of any of it. Because what you're doing is you're focusing on what's important. Now, even in this selective attention, you're focused dead on. You're some things can draw your attention away. You're selectively focusing on what's important, but if like you heard your name in the background, you probably turn, you'd be able to pull that in. So we have gateways to allow. At the same time, this selective attention, it's good because it keeps us focused on what's important, but it also comes at a cost. So if you think about, we don't. You might think you're a good multitasker, but in general, humans really are not good at dividing their consciousness. You can see it in research studies. You can see it if you just drive down the street. And if you're ever driving down Nicholasville Road and you see somebody and they're like going 15 miles slower than the speed limit, they're doing lanes, they're behaving idiotically half the time, at least probably you go up and they're on their phone and they're texting or they're talking to somebody. And the thing is you're trying to do two things at once. You're trying to focus your attention on driving, which is a complex skill, and at the same time, you're trying to divide it by texting, which is terrible, or even talking to somebody. It's difficult. You see more accidents because of that. I will tell you, like, I will try and think about how it is focused. Sometimes I might be working, I told you I like to do crossword puzzles. So I might be relaxing one night, I'm working on a crossword puzzle. If it's easy, I don't have to have as much attention. But if it's a difficult one, like I'm sitting there thinking, stuff's going on in my brain. My wife comes in, I'm working on it, and she's like, hey, and she asks me some question. And if I do not stop, she'll finish. And I'll be like, what did you just say? Or she'll ask me something, you didn't hear what I said. I'm like, no. And then I have to put my puzzle down, and I'm like, okay, I can talk with you now. Because we just can't separate those two things. So think about it. You're constantly surrounded by stuff. You're focusing on certain things. Sometimes things slip through the cracks. So I'll give you a couple of examples that researchers have shown related to this. So here's the first one. If you've seen this before, or you know what it is, don't yell out anything, but I just want you to follow the directions that's given in here.
Tired of pretzels not being Pop-Tarts, toaster pastries? Introducing Pop-Tarts pretzel, a gorgeous.
It's not a commercial.
The monkey business.
Oh.
Count how many times the players wearing white pass the ball.
Make an accurate count.
The correct answer is 16 passes.
So how many got 16? Yeah.
Passes. You spot the gorilla.
Yes.
For people who haven't seen or heard about a video like this before, about half missed the gorilla. If you knew about the gorilla, you probably saw it. But did you notice the curtain changing color for the player on the black team leaving the game? I'll let you rewind.
Some of you are like
Looking for a gorilla, you often miss other unexpected things. And that's the monkey business.
So, if you're like most experiments, most design studies that have done this, about half of people do not see the gorilla the first time. And even like some of you were like, yeah, I've seen this before, or I saw the gorilla, you probably didn't notice those other two pieces. Because when you're focused on them kind of the passes, it's using your attention. Other things you're not aware of. Even when it's like a gorilla comes out and you're seeing it behind, you're like, how could you ever miss that? People do. Inattentional blindness. If you're not purposely focusing on something, there's all kinds of things in your environment that can happen that you will just not be aware of. And it is because of this selective attention of time. It's a good thing because we need to be able to focus on it. We need to blind out or dumb down or numb There's another series of studies that showed a similar concept, and this is what's referred to as change
Don't miss a moment. Live TV, 70 plus channels. YouTube TV starts streaming now.
The doorstep. This video shows a participant in a 1998 study by Daniel Simons and Daniel Levin. Watch what happens as the unsuspecting pedestrian provides directions. The young man on the left is one of the experimenters. He has approached the white-haired man and asked for directions. Watch closely as two people carrying a door pass between them, and the first experimenter is replaced by someone else. Like many of the people in the study, the pedestrian was entirely unaware that he was talking to a different person.
I mean, imagine that. You're looking right at somebody. You're like talking with them. For 2 seconds, something changes, comes back as a different person. You don't even realize it. They did other studies like similar to that one in Starbucks. Like imagine you go to the Starbucks counter, you put in your order, the person who's taking your order drops something, goes down to get it. A second person comes up in their place to finish the order, and half the people don't even recognize it. Sometimes when it's a different gender. So it's like, you know, that's how focused, when we have that attention going, it's hard to bring in other stuff. Now, I take, there are exceptions to that rule. Again, if something important happens, like it's referred to as cocktail phenomenon, if you're focused on something, you're listening to something, blind, you know, deaden out everything else. But if something relevant to you is said, it makes it through that filter. And you go like, oh wait, I just heard my name, or I just heard my friend's name, or something else, even though you're selectively attending. Now, other factors with consciousness. Okay, consciousness, things that really need our attention. And like I said, when I'm comparing a Monday puzzle, New York Times gets more difficult through the week. Monday puzzles are really easy. Saturday puzzles are next to impossible unless you've like done them for a long time. Huge difference in the amount of cognitive capacity it takes. And so some things take focused attention. You really have to spend work focusing on it. Studying, for instance, reading something. You can't just read it, it's like all of a sudden it's into the system. You got to study it, you got to repeat it, you got to do it in different ways preparing for a test. Other things you don't even pay attention to. You're not even really focusing on it, yet it gets through the system to begin with. Same thing, some things that you're engaged in, like driving. Even if you think you don't need a lot of cognitive resources, driving is a complex task. To be aware of everything that goes on, it takes controlled processing. Other things, though, they happen automatically, sometimes without your awareness. So this is something that will frequently happen to me, and it probably happens more frequently even as I've gotten older. You probably experienced it. You ever been driving, you get in your car, whatever, and you're planning to go somewhere, and all of a sudden, you realize you're not going that direction. You're going somewhere else. So like, maybe, supposed to, this happened recently, I'm supposed to take my daughter to school, and I rarely have to drive her to school, usually my wife does, she takes the bus. So it's like, all right, she gets in the car, I drive, and I'm heading to work, she's like, man, you gotta go get lunch. Why does that happen? Well, it's because I'm not focused on it, and instead of that conscious effort, what we call controlled processing or effortful processing, now automatic processing is taking over. I'm used to going that route. I don't even have to think about it. And boom, I'm there. Or sometimes you might get to a location, and you're like, man, I don't remember driving. I'm just here. And that driving process, in that case, you weren't having to selectively focus on it all the way. So in that process of consciousness, some things we really have to take mental effort to focus on. Some of it gets in without much processing. The more frequently we do things, the less conscious effort we need to put in it, the more automatic it becomes. So for instance, like this is another issue that's coming up right now. My oldest daughter's 16, she's learning to drive. I'm like, you're gonna drive a stick shift. You're gonna learn to drive a stick shift at least. And so I have been driving a stick shift since I was younger than 16. I just now got my first car that's not a stick shift. And sometimes like I'll try to push in the clutch and hit the brake accidentally now. But when I'm driving a stick shift, I don't even have to think about what gear am I going into. It's just like seamless. I don't have to put any thought into it. You first learn, and you've got to think about every single step. You're like, okay, wait, I've got to push the clutch in. I've got to move the gear shift. I've got to release the clutch, give it gas, and every single part of that you're fully concentrating on. Once you've done it a bunch, you don't have to. That part, those parts become automatic, and you don't have to focus their attention. It gives you more bandwidth, essentially, to work with other things. And we'll demonstrate this kind of idea that sometimes, without us even trying, without us using focused attention, automatic processing occurs. And in this particular example, it interferes with the task that you're given. So, have you ever heard of the Stroop effect? So we're going to demonstrate the Stroop effect. And what I want you to do is I'm going to, the next screen that's going to come up is going to have a series of words. Okay? And those words are going to be in different colors. And what you've got to do is as fast as you can. I mean, I want you to do it as fast as you can. Just be like boom, 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 boom. Tell me the color of each of the words. Don't tell me what the word says. Tell me the color of each of the words. And so when it comes up out loud, just go through them as fast as you can. Tell me the color of the word. Clearly you made a mistake, right? Because you're trying to say the color, but guess what happens? When you see the word, that word, without you having to think about it, it automatically, you read what the word says. You have learned language. You've learned to read. If you think about when you started, when you were a child, and you were learning to read, you had to recognize what the letter was, structurally. That's an A. You had to think, what does that sound make? What does it make when I combine them? What are the rules? And it was hard, and you had to focus your attention on doing that. Now, you've got it down. You can glance at it immediately. The word gets into your system, and it interferes with your ability to say the color because the word tries to pop in. And so, even though the task was just say the color, your automatic processing of the word interferes. That's what leads to that effect where you have difficulty doing. Excuse me. All right. So that's one part of consciousness. One of the processes is the selective attention. Again, it has positive and negative benefits. A second process of consciousness is the argument is it provides this mental meaning space, a place, figuratively, where we function, where I can combine all incoming streams of information with memory that I have stored. And today, when we get into this later in the semester, when we talk about memory, we refer to this mental meaning place as working memory. So if we think right now, consciousness allows you to receive the incoming stimulus, receive my voice, visual information. You have to immediately access your long-term memory to understand language. It happens automatically. You have to think about what other situations does this relate to. You pull all this information somewhere. That's what consciousness allows us to do. Bring in short-term memory, long-term memory, sensation, perceptual experiences all in one place so we understand what's going on. It's a very abstract concept, but that's kind of the best way to describe it. And then the third thing that it allows us to do is to mentally manipulate items. We don't have to have things physically in our presence to be able to use consciousness to do this. And that can come in the form of, like me just saying, imagine, picture in your mind an elephant. And like look around, look at the elephant from the front, look at it from the side, look at it from the back, and I do not have an elephant in front of me. Yet if you're listening to me, you can imagine that, and you can move the elephant in your mind. Or I could ask you from here, can you give me directions, walking directions, from here to Funkhausen? And if you know your way around campus, probably you can, and you're like, okay, well, let's see. Mentally, I've got to think, I've got to go around the building, or on the back side of this building, I've got to go around it depending on which direction you're going to go. You could probably cognitively map your way and describe to me those directions. How are you able to do that? It's because I can mentally, in this state of consciousness, where I am aware of my surroundings, I can do that type of manipulation without having anything physically present. Now, I've been saying consciousness. And when we talk about consciousness is not just a single piece. It varies. Sometimes you are like at the heightened state of consciousness. You are on it. You're paying attention. You're fully into it. Sometimes you're kind of like into it, but you're daydreaming. You're thinking about something else. You're not fully aware of what's going on. That can go all the way down to you're like starting to nod off. And it's not just your daydreaming, but you're almost going to sleep. To your sleep to like the lowest end of the conscious experience perhaps would be you're in a coma. Your brain is still active. You are alive. But what is consciousness at that point? So really, you have to realize that consciousness is a continuum from totally non-conscious of anything to fully aware of what's going on in your environment. It's a continuum. But it's hard to really discuss all those avenues of the continuum. So frequently, researchers talk about different levels of consciousness. And traditionally, they talk about 3 different levels. Those 3 levels include the conscious experience, the pre-conscious, and the unconscious, or what cognitive psychologists would say, the subconscious. As we think about what these levels represent, when we talk about the conscious experience, this is whatever you're attuned to, whatever you're thinking about currently, everything that's going on in that conscious mind. What are you aware of right now? That would be that top level. Below that level of conscious awareness, okay, and Freud would argue that's a tiny part. Below that level is things that you could bring into conscious experience, but you're just not currently thinking about it. And what most psychologists today, basically we're talking about ordinary memory processes. So imagine this. You know, can you remember your 3rd grade teacher? Can you bring them to mind, bring a picture, mentally manipulate, you see their image, you can remember their name? All right, well, most likely, for me it was Ms. Russell, most likely, before I said that, you weren't sitting there thinking about your 3rd grade teacher. I mean, it'd be bizarre if you were, but most likely you weren't. But as soon as I said that, you were able to bring that material into conscious, and you are experiencing it. Prior to that, it was in the pre-conscious. Material you have access to. You're just not currently thinking about. And then there's a layer below that. And again, depending on the perspective you come from, some cognitive psychologists talk about subconscious. It's things that are below your level of actually awareness, of conscious experience, that you really can't access. So, for instance, we talk about autonomic nervous system activity. You know when you run, your heartbeat starts to increase, but you're not aware of the processes that are going on that lead to that increase. Oftentimes we see research that's done to show that information that you get that you're not even aware of can have an impact on your behavior. I can present you something subconsciously. I have you look at a screen, I flash words so fast that you cannot consciously perceive it. You I didn't see anything, and they usually have a masking task that comes up for it. Somebody comes over it. So I flash you either words that are happy and glad and elated, or I flash you words that are like sad, depressed. And then afterwards, I record your behavior. And I find that those individuals, even though nobody can recall the words that they saw, the individuals that got the happy words show a better mood than those that show the sad words. We have priming effects, where something that you're not even consciously aware of, you see impacts the behavior that you engage in. That stuff would be in the subconscious. Freud used that term unconscious to say, it's also things that you don't have direct access to. But when we talk about Freud's theory, he said this is also like comprised of traumatic events that have happened to you that you pushed away from conscious awareness, so you don't remember them. And all kinds of just hedonistic urges and drives that we're totally unaware of. So although practically it really is a continuum where you fall, this is one way at least to describe those different levels in a different way. Now within this framework, so we've got a general idea of what consciousness is now. Now the first alteration or levels of consciousness that we're going to talk about is with sleep. And sleep is one mechanism that is affected by what's referred to as circadian rhythm. And circadian rhythm refers to just like it's a biological clock, it's an internal clock that is a daily, 24-hour circle a day that influences your activity, that regulates physiological activity. So although probably you know, although there's been research lately that says the body temperature is actually not an accurate number anymore. You know what your body temperature is supposed to be? 98.6 is what we've learned for forever. They recently said it's really going to be slightly different from that. But even when you say your temperature is supposed to be 98.6, throughout the day your temperature fluctuates. It fluctuates on a very concise schedule that is regulated by this circadian rhythm. Your release of hormones are regulated by this. Your temperature, body temperature, is regulated on a 24-hour cycle. Just as sleep is regulated by this circadian rhythm. If you think in terms of sleep, every night, whatever time close to your normal bedtime, because you kind of get this fixed a little bit, there's variation. For me, probably every night around 10 o'clock, I start to get tired. And it's like I want to go to bed. If I stay up much later than that, then it's like it almost forces me. I need to go to bed. And then in the morning, I start to wake up and I become roused. And then about halfway through the day, sometime after lunch, I start to get tired again. And if I'm home and have the ability, I will love taking a nap. Because that's like a time where I can feel it. My body temperature changes. Blood sugar levels change. And all of those happen every single day. And they follow this rhythm. And it is, for sleep, it is regulated by, at least partially regulated by, a specific physiological mechanism. Where your optic nerves come out, you've got an area that's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Where the optic nerves cross, it's called the optic chiasm. And above that, there's a group of cells, cell bodies, what are called nuclei. And within that lies the circadian rhythm for sleep. That sends out signals that says you should start to get tired, you're needing to wake up. And through the cycles that we're going to discuss. If you've ever experienced jet lag, which you had in your labs, you had a project of jet lag. Internal desynchronization is what jet lag refers to, where your normal clock is put off kilter because of time change. And it can have pretty big impact on you. So, sleep is an important thing if you think about in terms of sleep. How do we study it? I'll tell you, sleep is a phenomenon that we've been interested, that people have been wondering about, interested in for thousands of years, right, since the beginning of humankind. When psychologists started studying in 1879, they didn't have techniques to measure sleep other than you look at somebody when they're sleeping and you're asking what happens when they're awake. If you think about you, how would I be able to measure it? Do you know when you go to sleep? Like, can you tell me the precise second that you go to sleep? You ever been in bed and you're just like, I can't really fall asleep. And then sometime later you like wake up and you're like, I guess I did. It's like, when is that point where you're like, I'm not asleep, and then all of a sudden I'm waking up from sleep? How can you measure that crossover? Well, I can tell you, you can't. Scientists can, because now we have the technology where I can put you in a cap like that that has electrodes all over your head that's measuring your brain waves that are going on. And in measuring your brain waves with a cap like this on, with the EEG, I can tell you exactly the second that someone goes to sleep, because I see a difference in brainwave activity. And how sleep researchers study sleep and what goes on is by recording brainwave activity, seeing changes in brainwave activity as we go through different levels of sleep. So we're going to talk about the different stages of sleep. We're going to talk about the different brainwave patterns that are associated with each stage. We'll end up talking about REM sleep, which is a specific stage, and that will lead us into dreaming. So, the general stages of sleep. And I'll tell you, there's two models. The original model had 4 stages. Stage 1, 2, 3, 4, plus REM. And a newer model, they're both in use, basically eliminates stage 4 and says you've got stage 1, 2, and 3. The new model 3 incorporates both 3 into the old model. So here, this is like kind of the pictures for the old model, but I just want you to know. So you've got stage 1 sleep, stage 2, stage 3 and 4, and then this period of sleep called REM. And notice, those are a recording of the general brainwave patterns when an individual has a cap like that on that's recording this electrical activity. It's literally recording the electrical activity that goes on when you have neural firing. So when you first are about to go to sleep, you have not hit sleep, you're going to show one of 2 general patterns, depending on if you're alert, fully aware, or if you're starting to lay down, calm yourself down to get ready to sleep. If you're alert, what I hope all of you are now, alert, active, you're going to see a pattern that is the beta waves, that top one, where it has high frequency waves, okay? Fast waves that are going on. They're not high in amplitude, but they're high in frequency. Shows an active brain going on. If I said, hey, you know what, we're going to do this test today, I'm going to turn out the lights and I want everybody just to relax yourself and try to go to sleep, or we're going to do meditation or something, and you start to slow yourself down, you're purposely trying to calm down, before you fell asleep, you start to see that alpha wave activity. The brainwave pattern is slow. Okay? And so, here you are laying in bed in a sleep lab, you've got the cap on, you've been awake, and it's times like now starting to get tired, you shut off the lights, you lay down, you're going to hit the alpha wave activity is going to slow, and then all of a sudden, you're going to fall asleep. And when you fall asleep, you go into this first stage of sleep, stage 1. And what I will see is the appearance of a new brainwave pattern. those theta waves that you see in there, again, are a little longer wavelength. And as soon as you hit that new brainwave, then you enter stage 1. Now this first stage only lasts for maybe between 2 and 10 minutes at most. You can, very frequently what will happen is you'll enter stage 1 sleep, you'll see the change in theta waves, and then something wakes you up and you come back out and you're awake again. And then maybe you'll go back into it, you'll see the reappearance of the theta waves. During that first stage of sleep, when you have that, oftentimes, this is like really light sleep. So if you fell asleep in class, so like I've seen that happen. I can remember seeing kids in high school, especially on the desk. And if this ever happened to you, or saw somebody, so they're sitting at the desk, they're asleep, and all of a sudden, like they do that big jerk and throw their books off or whatever, and you talk to them and they're like, I thought I was falling, or something happened, like they had hit kind of this dream, and then all of a sudden, boom, they do it. Well, what happened is they had like a hypnagogic hallucination. They had this thought that they were falling, whatever, their body reacted, and now they're awake again. If they stay asleep, then they're going to go into stage 2 pattern. In stage 2 sleep, you also have the appearance of theta waves, but what distinguishes stage 2 from stage 1 is you start to see these other kind of weird patterns of brain waves, 2 different pieces. One are referred to as sleep spindles, and you can see that box that has all of a sudden high amplitude, high frequency waves. It's like a burst that happens, and those happen periodically. Or you'll see at the end what are called cave complexes, and there's all of a sudden this just huge, really slow wave that comes through. This second stage of sleep, which lasts for about 20 minutes. So first stage 2 to 10, second one, you're in this one about 20 minutes. It's still pretty light sleep. You can be awakened fairly easily, but what is hypothesized, we really don't know. We see those patterns in terms of sleep spindles and K complexes. The best hypothesis to explain why those occur is they're designed to actually keep you asleep. So if you think, when you're sleeping, your hearing is still viable, loud noises can wake you up, you're experiencing environmental stimulus, and so to try to keep you asleep, you'll start to see, if there is some type of noise, you might see the appearance of a sleep spindle. So you have internal activity going on, hypothetically, to drown out external noise. Another supporting evidence that says those are designed to keep you asleep is that as we age, the number of sleep spindles and K complexes that we experience decreases. And as you age, you become more easily awakened from sleep. So like if you think about, I can remember, as a youngster, a teenager, sneaking out from my parents' house. And my parents then would have been in their 40s probably. And I could get away with it. First time I ever tried to sneak out of my grandparents' house, I got caught. It's like any noise, it wakes them up and they hear it. So the older you get, the easier you come out of sleep. And again, the hypothesis is maybe because you have fewer of those. If you continue to stay asleep, again, you're going to go down into the next level. And then the old, it would be stage 3 and then stage 4. And the new would just be, you're in stage 3, which is referred to as deep sleep or slow wave sleep. Because now, you have the presence of a new wave pattern, which are delta waves. And you can see those delta waves are really high amplitude, really low frequency, very slow wave. And it is during this point that you are out, that it is hard to awaken. And if you've ever got a phone call or something that's woken you up in the middle of the night and you're just like, you're like totally groggy, you can barely function, you got wakened from deep sleep. It is also during this time maybe if you ever did it when you were a kid, pulled pranks on people, like friends when they were sleeping over. Put warm water, their hand in warm water, or shaving cream on their face, or whatever. You can pretty much do anything to somebody else. Draw mustaches on their face with Sharpies when they're in deep sleep. It takes a tremendous amount to wake them up at this point. And again, you got that slow wave going. This is where you could argue this is where you're getting the most quality sleep. Research shows if you disrupt deep sleep patterns, individuals have performance deficits the next day. They don't feel like they're totally rested. So you would go through this. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, 4, deep sleep. First part of the night, at least probably you're looking at 30 minutes there. And then from deep sleep, you would come in and hit REM sleep. Now, REM, somebody could probably tell me what REM stands for, right? Rapid eye movements. And it got that name because if you see somebody in REM sleep, underneath their eyes are moving all around during this time. As you can see in terms of wave patterns, you've got a similar wave pattern during REM sleep, beta waves, that you have when you're fully awake. So oftentimes REM sleep, which we associate REM sleep with dreaming, your brainwave pattern is similar to when you're awake. It's often referred to as paradoxical sleep because your brainwave pattern is very similar. When we see individuals that go into REM sleep, they've got higher heart rate, rapid breathing. There is sexual arousal in both males and females during REM sleep, regardless of the type of dream. Most importantly, though, when you are in REM sleep, your brain is sending out inhibitory signals to your muscular system so that you will not be moving. So you cannot act out a dream during REM sleep. Because essentially, you're paralyzed. Now you might see, like if you've ever had a pet, and you've seen your pet dreaming, okay? You'll see like they're maybe kick their paws a little bit, they're doing little tiny movements. And if you see a human that's in REM sleep, you might see finger movements and stuff, but you will not see gross body movement. They cannot get up because of this essential paralysis, this inhibition that goes on. Some individuals will wake from a dream and will not be like fully, they can't move. You ever had sleep paralysis? Where you wake up and you're just like, oh my God, I can't do anything. People freak out frequently when that happens. They've come awake, they've come out of REM sleep, but the paralysis part is still there.
Right in.
Alright, we've got a couple minutes.
Do you want the link to the lecture video?
Oh yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, I've been recording all the lectures on here because he doesn't post lecture slides or anything. You have Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to add you on Facebook and I'll send you the link. I have like 3 lectures that I need to like edit before I can like post them on YouTube.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, 3 theories of dreaming. First one, Freud's wish fulfillment. Essentially what Freud said is, your dream, whatever your storyline is really symbolic of some underlying meaning. Mainly the expression of sexual desire. And so, whatever your storyline is, what's called the manifest content, is just symbolic of the underlying true meaning, the latent content. And what you're trying to do is fulfill hedonistic desires, wishes. You do it in a way that you're not consciously aware of. That's that theory. Information processing theory essentially argues that when you're sleeping, when you're dreaming, there is a purpose for that dream. It's to help you deal with stuff that you're dealing with in waking life. So like if you've ever stopped something, you gave up cigarettes, and you're dreaming about smoking, it's like this is your unconscious way to deal with those issues you're dealing in daily life. If you've got problems that you're working with, relationship problems, school problems, there's a mathematical problem that you go to bed and you're just like, I can't solve this, and the next morning you wake up and you're like, I've got the solution. Well, this theory argues that during that time, you are dealing with that information, cognitive processing going on. The third one, activation synthesis theory, says the dream itself really has no hidden meaning. All that's going on is every night, when you go into REM sleep, your pond starts sending out messages. And it sends out messages across the cortex. So you've got random stimulation. Your brain tries to make sense of it. Why the hell have I got all this random stimulation down? So it just grabs memories, things that happened during the day, whatever, pulls them together into a storyline. There's no hidden meaning behind that storyline. It's just integrating stuff to make